That's not good. Turn the fans on.
Only the fans. Only fans.
Max.
Oh, that sounds good.
I hit the max fans button.
Max fans. What are you doing? What's your plan here?
What are you doing? Well, you were fucking around. You were looking at shit. I was fucking around. We haven't started anything yet. What is your plan?
I love that. Your background.
I forgot your AC was broken.
Yeah, it's bad. I can open this window and suck in some air from the outside. We risk having outside noises.
You just suck it in.
Suck it all.
Well, I mean, I don't care that much, man. It's not that big of a deal.
I'm sure people will understand if we have outside noises.
It's up to you. If you think, if last time it was like a car alarm and that was the worst thing that happened.
Did we leave it open last time?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, then we've already set precedent.
No, I was just going to compare our computers real quick and see how yours is better. I know it is. I'm not stupid. I just want to see how close I am. So I can see what games we can play together, too. Oh my god, I played just a tiny bit of Back 4 Blood today.
Nice.
It's on Game Pass. Have you played it yet?
No, I don't know what it is.
It's just Left 4 Dead.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's the next Left 4 Dead.
That's excellent.
You okay?
Is it made by the same people? Is it made by Valve?
I don't know.
Okay.
It plays and seems like it is.
Because I played World War Z, and it was basically just prettier looking Left 4 Dead. It had the same mechanics, same thing. You got, there's however many health items you get to carry one. There's however many bombs you get to carry one, and blah blah blah. It's the same fucking things. It just looks nicer.
What this is.
Back 4 Blood, you called it?
Yeah, it's on Game Pass. You'll just have to check it out. It's just it's new. I'm surprised you don't know about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be honest.
It's weird because ever since I got this new computer, I've actually been playing I've been playing less video games, but actually spending some time gaming proper, I guess. But so I got this computer that's mainly just for editing. And so I'm trying to understand how to use Adobe properly. I'm trying to learn that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing great.
Do you have any experience with? I have none.
With Adobe Premiere?
I
Zero.
have, and this is going to show my stupidity here and my inexperience. But for my video projects, I'm trying to work on for YouTube. I have Filmora.
Filmora.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was I think I paid for it. It's a one-time license. You pay for it, and instead it's like $60 or something like that. And it has a lot. But I've also noticed that there's a lot of extra, you can buy packs and get, for different editing software, plugins and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, stretch this, do that, a lot of it's there at the base level. You pay the money, you get it, and I have it forever.
So it's like old school Firefox, where it was just a very basic thing, and anything you wanted it to do, you bought a plugin.
Yeah, it does a lot of the extra shit. There's stuff, there's motion tracking. It has some things that you would find in, a more, advanced software that a professional would use, like Premiere. But then, there's a bunch of, it's also for, you can tell it's geared more towards, a high school or college student who's just trying to make a video project and not, create something.
Producer,
Which, to be fair, right now, all I'm trying to put out on YouTube is basically video projects.
Right.
They're not, it's not... Eventually, I would like to get to where I can edit some really cool shit and make, I want to make hour-long pieces going into, development of certain things or, how a thing happened,
Sure.
But that's,
When I was a kid...
That's years away.
When I was a kid, my dad was a videographer part-time. And so, I got to play around with his stuff, and I loved making videos as, video projects for schools. Mm-hmm. Anytime there was a project, it was you can write an essay or do this. So I was can I make a video? Because it was great. And so, I got really used to, it was a program called Cool Edit Pro, and I got really good at that. And then stopped making videos for years, didn't have the technology for it, and then all of my stuff... now that's out is made in KineMaster, which is a cell phone app.
Yeah, I looked into that a little bit.
Yeah. And so I paid $40 a year to not have their watermark on it and got to use all their features and shit. And now I've got Adobe Premiere, which is a lot like the old school Cool Edit because it's actually a professional thing. But holy crap, is it in depth. and like there's 80 different ways to do everything, and it is super duper not intuitive, and so like it's just like it's awesome, but I'm having to work really hard to get like the basics done. So I've been spending a lot of time just trying to learn how to do the very basics. I have a couple of friends who live down the road from me who are actual professional videographers who use Premiere for a living. So
That's
like
cool.
They came over and gave me some pointers, and I'm like gonna probably have them come over a lot more to do that.
Do you ever use like do you have Skillshare?
No, but I could.
Have you looked into it at all?
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, all the everybody I watch plugs it.
Right
so
on.
they must
Yeah.
offer
It must
some
be
money
good.
to those people.
Yeah. Are we recording this? Is this the show? Is this what we're doing? Fuck. We kind of started talking.
I am actually. We did. Well, we were having a conversation. We were talking about things that we enjoy.
Bienvenidos.
and
No me siento cómodo con esto.
Es una hombre? No, fuck. See?
See. Phenomenal.
I knew immediately.
Phenomenal.
And that's progress. As soon as I said it, I
That's
was
great.
like, no,
Ben's learning Spanish, y'all.
I'm learning.
We were talking about it before we sat down in here. Ben's learning Spanish and doing a great job. She is a man. That's how we started the show.
To be fair, I don't know how Spanish hasn't been canceled yet.
It's super difficult. Now it's like Spanish is such a cool language.
It actually is. Like every word I learn, every time I learn a new word, I'm like, I like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
Like
It's nice because like fucking it's Spanish has a beautiful economy of words. You know what I mean? Like in English you really have to spell out what you're saying. But in Spanish, like I don't have to say like I am walking. I can just say, camino. Real easy. Just one word. It's done. And so, and that could be, I am
That's
walking or
pretty cool.
I walk or whatever like that. It can fit into different content. That's the hardest thing about Spanish is the context.
it seems like it's more adaptable.
It is very adaptable. And but you have to be able to understand what the person's talking about in order to understand the actual things that they're saying. Because like sometimes like the same sentence will mean something completely different depending on like just how you're directing it and how you're saying it. There's also like a big problem is there's no word for it in Spanish.
Yeah.
So like if you want to say like I don't know, like drink it, you have to first prescribe like a gender to the thing and
Yeah.
then just tack it on like babele, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's or babela, I guess it would be. So like it's so that's tricky. But like it's hard. I did 3 semesters of Spanish in college. One of them was required for language arts, and then I did 2 extra electives just to get me through because I wanted to be good at the language, and I haven't done shit to continue learning it for a long time, and I feel bad about that. I had just started learning how future tense works. I'm good at present tense. Past tense is tricky, but I can get it. Future tense is hard, and I don't remember it, and I have nothing in terms of like conditional tenses or anything
Man.
like that. Like, cause that's the hardest thing. It's just conjugation.
It doesn't help that I already use like my own like native language pretty loosely.
Yeah.
Like it's already pretty wobbly. Like people are always like, Ben, you're not speaking correctly, and I'm like, well, it's fucking 2021.
Well, that's the thing is
So
that
I
like
can
that's
kind of talk however I want.
we talked about that very briefly last time, just because that's just the way that we've always been. We like to play with words, and
Yeah.
like Amber and I do that as well. We have 2 baby chickens. We've been calling them squirбs for like 2 weeks now.
That's not a word.
It's not, but that's what. If you look at a baby chicken, what else is it but a squirb? You know what I mean? And I'm like,
honestly,
shit, I gotta go check on the squirбs, babe, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Honestly, that's probably just a thing that you guys have. I don't think anybody else would be like, it's a squirb.
Have you seen a baby chicken before?
Yeah.
The ones that are just
Yes.
starting to get their feathers in, and they're
Yes.
kind of half down, half feathers,
Yeah.
and they look real awkward and they're real long.
Yeah.
Squirb. It looks like a squirb. You couldn't call it anything else.
You look like a squirb.
How
You're talking like
how
a fucking
dare you?
squirb right now.
I can't believe you just said that shit to me in front of everybody.
I can. This isn't a fucking friendship built on mutual respect.
It's a business partnership at best, where we make no money. We were talking about
God damn it! Why'd you have to bring that up?
what?
I'm trying to pretend that we make a ton of money.
Oh, on the podcast?
No, just in general. We're so rich.
Eventually, man.
No,
Big dreams. Eventually, we'll be the most listened to podcast on Spotify, and everyone will be like, "Hey, have you listened to I'm Not Comfortable with This?" No, probably for the best, but do it anyway. You know, it'll be great. The look you're giving me right now.
people love this show. So I'm just gonna cut. Anytime I don't know what to say, I'm just gonna say people love this show.
That's anytime we break new ground in stupidity.
We haven't done that in a while.
That's what the show's all about, man. We're at the cutting edge of fucking off.
I would say we have yet to define what the show actually is about. I think part of the show is trying to figure out what the show is about.
That's a big part of it.
Because we thought it would be about like being uncomfortable, and it still is, because we're uncomfortable right now. But then we drifted into topics that we were way comfortable with, and and then we got on the soapbox for a while, and then we pulled it back in, and we started talking about some really cool shit.
And then we had an episode where we said the word dick like 80 times, and I actually see people like referencing that episode from time to time.
Well, that was one of the most thought-provoking episodes we've ever put out.
Dick provoking.
I'm afraid to think of what kind of episode we could put out that might be dick-provoking.
It'd be an awesome one, man.
But trying to push all this shit, make all these things happen. We do have topics we could draw from if you want. I know there's a few.
Well, we were gonna talk about. So I texted you the other day. I wanted to touch on artificial intelligence.
The problem with that, and while I'm open to talking about artificial intelligence,
yeah,
is that I don't know how you touch on it. Because it's such a big fucking
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can get balls deep in
and you
AI.
listed, I saw
really...
in the notes, too, that you put, you did do the all-encompassing AI, and then you also put robotic rights.
Yeah.
Which...
What constitutes being alive, and when does that matter, and all that.
I break away a lot from people when it comes to robotic rights, because I am one of those insane individuals who says eventually we will have to give robots rights.
I agree, though.
They won't be robots. They'll be sentient machines, but we'll have to give them rights. If you make something that feels this, if it can view life in the same capacity that I do, then you have to give it rights.
Did you hear that?
I don't care if it's not real.
Demi Lovato, Amber was telling me about this. They came out to their like legions of fans and told their fans that they what was it? They should never talk about aliens. They should never use the word aliens.
Oh yeah.
Because that's offensive.
Because that's you're saying they. Everyone is saying they. Did something happen with Demi Lovato?
They came out as non-binary, so their pronouns are they them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a thing. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I found out about it on the way home from Utah a little while ago, and like I made a video about it because everybody was talking about.
Like, luckily, I don't talk about Demi Lovato at all.
I don't know anything about them,
so I don't think I've ever said anything shitty.
Yeah,
but like,
I don't know.
I just noticed because I was like, I remember who Demi Lovato is. So when people started saying that, I was like, so what?
So yeah, they came out and said that they're like, we should not be using the term alien to describe creatures from outer space because that's a derogatory term used for the outsiders here on Earth.
I saw that article. I didn't read too much into it. I read some of the comments and watched people trip balls.
We should only be using ET or extraterrestrial.
We don't get to decide that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Number one, this isn't a fight that anybody needs to be having. And number two, who the fuck are you to decide what the aliens want to be called?
The aliens will tell us what they want to be called.
We're the Flebians, thank you. Extraterrestrial is a dirty word on our language. Fuck you, Demi Lovato. Like, what is that?
Hopefully they're beyond where we're at right now, where we're trying to figure out what is okay and what's not. I'm sure they'll be like, they would probably think we're silly because we're still having these conversations.
Yeah.
And they would be like, what do you mean? Like, you're coming up with labels for each other and stuff. You don't just be.
Yeah.
You don't just be. People, you don't just let people be.
Fucking.
Okay. They'll be like, well, anyway, so we've got some new technology we think you could benefit from. You've had it for 80 years, but your government wouldn't let you. No, I'm just kidding. That's conspiracy talk.
But like that kind of gets into the same thing. Is that when you talk about future robot rights, it's the same thing as talking about alien rights or whatever else. It's all hypothetical.
It's tougher though because we created the robots. We didn't create aliens.
I guess that is
so
true.
when you're talking about it's like deciding when to let your own child have autonomy. Only it's worse because your own child can't just immediately overthrow you.
But don't you think that, like, to take it ad absurdum, don't you think that the argument is going to be, or at least it's going to sound the same as, like, the racists that are like, if we let, whatever, black people have rights, then they're going to run wild in the streets and shit.
Absolutely, and there will be so much fucking, it'll be worse.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to not see a sentient machine as a fucking life.
Yeah, yeah.
It don't bleed.
It didn't bleed oil.
I just take a fucking, what's his name? Who's the guy that wrote iRobot? Was it Asimov?
I believe it was Asimov.
I like to say when I talk about, I said it on my first podcast I did. I take an Asimovian approach to artificial intelligence. I want to believe that eventually we'll create things that are so close to being like us that we won't be able to deny it.
Yeah.
Like it'll be like the iRobot thing. That was the whole point of a lot of his artificial intelligence stories, where it was like that, eventually it'll become something separate from man, but also like man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have you heard about fucking...
That's why he has the story. I can't remember the name right now, but there's a robot, and there's these two astronauts or some shit, and they have to go into this place to deactivate a thing or retrieve something, and it'll kill them if they go in. It's like, they'll die, but the robot's like, well, I can do it. I'm a robot, and so he goes and does the thing and like risks fucking some shit. But he commits a selfless act, and the whole point is like you wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't like
right, yeah,
capable of that type of reasoning.
Exactly. And so is that now still just a dumb robot, or is that something that feels? You know what I mean? Have you heard about Sophia? Sophia is
probably
Sophia.
Let's jog the old noodle.
She looks like that.
Yeah.
So Sophia is a robot.
Put that on the Discord.
I probably should. So look this up. Sophia, spelled how you think it would be, Sophia. She's a social robot. She's a robot that was designed to be able to have conversations and interact with people and like read facial features and all sorts of cool stuff, or facial expressions, I should say. And she was granted full citizenship in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian government said, okay, that is now a citizen of this country. This robot has all the same rights and privileges of any... That it should be pointed out...
Interesting who's doing it.
Well, supposedly the move was so that like it would promote people coming over and like developing AI in Saudi Arabia. Like they wanted to be like the center for this kind of technology and business growth. But also, one major thing you should point out is that like most women don't have all the same rights as this robot in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So, and like homosexuals and whatnot, a lot of humans don't have all the same rights as this robot. But anyway,
you don't have to worry about robots fucking having sex with each other.
The question is that if in a hypothetical situation you were to take Sophia to Saudi Arabia and break this robot, would you be charged with anything better than property damage? Would you be charged with murder? And is that reasonable?
Not yet.
Not yet, for sure. But, like, now. Like, why not? And where is that line going to be? Because, like, I always say, if there is a line, then that line is, by very nature, it is arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so, like, this line, it's arbitrary. We have to admit that. But it also has to exist. Like, whether or not you agree that robots could ever have rights, that means that your line is elsewhere, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There is a line where you say this thing is now, capable of... And maybe your line is human DNA, but then what about variation? What about this, that? Because there is such a thing as the Non-Human Rights Project, which you should look up, by the way, which is trying to grant rights to, like, chimpanzees and things, because they very clearly have minds and emotions and personalities and feelings, and they should be treated not as, just objects in nature. They should be treated as, thinking, breathing creatures that deserve protection.
Yeah.
And the comparison that they draw quite a bit is one of like, you know, black people in America that walk up the courthouse steps as an object and are granted citizenship and walk out as a human being for the first time in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like, where is the line is really the question. And some people could even be offended by that and say, how dare you compare the plight of a black person getting rights in this country to the plight of a chimpanzee? What the fuck is that? And that's a valid criticism.
Well,
but
it's very
also,
valid.
like, you also have to see the other side of it, that this is a thinking thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, it's really, it's so tough to think about because the line's there, but I don't know where it is.
Well, I think you still keep. I always keep people separate from anything, and that's why the AI question is so difficult, because if it thinks and feels exactly like a person on the inside, maybe it's just smarter and logical, and it has like a robot brain, but it's like still like, you know, like it still for itself can think like, oh, I want to do this for this person to help this person, or I fucking want to kill that guy, or like whatever, any of that shit. If it gets to that point, you have to fucking create something that like it's on par with humanity.
Okay, so a robot kills a dude.
We need to remove the word, like the idea of a robot, of it being a robot too, if we're going to push it further. Because in my mind, it's like it'll eventually, assuming we don't nuke ourselves out of existence, it'll eventually get to the point where like after work you go to the bar with your robot friend. So it's not really a robot. It's a
synthetic human.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. Like they're different from you, but you don't see the difference as much because we all live in society together.
So
like, and it's a lot of science fiction dreams of this, and I don't even know if it's possible, if it could ever even happen.
You go out to the bar with your synth friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, horrible example, but that's, you know.
Yeah, no, but it's like, so you go out with your synth friend,
Yeah.
you get tanked up on whiskey, your synth friend gets tanked up on
whatever he does.
hentai.
Maybe he's been made so that he can drink whiskey too.
Maybe. I love the Futurama idea that ethanol is fuel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so they go out, you get blasted, and you and your synth friend go beat up a dude or drive drunk and murder somebody or something like that. Are you punished differently? Why or why not?
You should be punished the same.
If a synth gets the death penalty, is that execution or is that deactivation and dismantlement? You know, what is that? Like,
well, it would be, they'd probably call it deactivation and dismantlement, but it would be, for all intents and purposes, an execution.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what?
Because the living for that thing ceases to happen. So, yeah, I know. We won't be able to figure this out, but I still love it. It's a fascinating conversation.
The idea that, like, when we're out here protesting synth rights, and we're all out here fighting, and the analogous to like some racist back in the late 1800s, some plantation owner fucking comes out in his truck with his Confederate flag hat and drags a beat up synth out of the back of his truck and breaks it in front of us. It's like, it's just a machine. And we're like, you just murdered them. And then we have to clash with the police over whether or not this guy gets arrested. This is, I'm in the moment right now.
And half the
I'm
police
here.
is made up of synths.
And they have to see it and process it. And then their brother next to them in blue has to look at them in the eye and be like, we can't prosecute that man. We can't arrest him. And the synth is like, am I not your brother in blue? Would you do it for me? And they're like, it's different for you, Johnson. It's fucking...
It's stupid, thing. But it could be real. That so could happen.
It's so tough. It's
you
so
watched this
tough.
synth fucking help you in the big riot.
Yeah.
2 months ago. I don't know.
Yeah. And then some fucking racist asshole, some humanist asshole.
Imagine like the war fucking scenario. Imagine you're fucking like you're just fucked. It's a movie. It's already a movie.
Yeah.
The first synthetic robot in your platoon, and he fucking saves your life. And now you guys go back home, and people are trying to beat him up and rip his arms off.
Exactly. And then fucking that guy, that fucking synth walks into a diner where he isn't fucking allowed because he's like, why aren't you serving tables, synth? And then because he's some fucking organicist asshole, and then his wife starts choking, and the synth runs over there and like slaps her on the back with the force of 1,000 raccoons and fucking knocks whatever it is out of her fucking throat. And he's like, I never thought a synth could behave this way. And he's like, I never thought an organicist could fucking see me for what I am. And it'd be fucking rad, dude. It'd be so fucking
Why
cool.
do I want to cry for it?
This is a heart-touching movie, man.
All right, so the podcast is dead. We got to get into film.
We gotta write this up and send it to Michael Bay or some shit.
Like the synth fucking comes home and hugs his wife, and then a building explodes.
He jumps 10,000 feet in the air to go catch some kid.
And then he transforms into a jet. An unlicensed jet, because we're not making Transformers. It's just, but it's really fucking complicated.
It's so fucking cool, dude.
It's complicated. Look at, like, I mean, look at, it's hard to come up with, there's no real life examples, so you have to go to science fiction a lot.
Right.
Like, look at Star Trek. You got dudes like Data, right? They're like, from what I remember, they're pretty much just synthetic life forms.
I never watched it. I don't know.
He's just like, he's like super fucking cold and logical, but he is also like, they're people. Like, they can feel things and they care about like their crewmates and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, he doesn't have emotion, and of course it's fiction. So like,
It is
whatever
what it
the
is.
writers put into it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like, it's not like, if I go write a story, and I probably will before I die, but if I write a story or something about a fucking AI, it's gonna have all my fucking bullshit in it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be completely biased, but it's there, and that's the only thing you really have to draw on right now.
Right.
Is like stuff that people have written about or filmed and made movies and games about, but the idea is there, and we very much have been grappling with this question for a long time.
What even would... Well, so here's the thing.
It starts
Like,
with what makes a person.
Well, it starts with what makes something alive. Because,
Fair
like,
enough, yeah.
there isn't a definition for life. Like, there's... I think NASA defines life as, like...
Do it fuck?
reproducing, self-replicating chemical reactions capable of Darwinian evolution.
Yeah.
But even that leaves a lot out, because in biology, we have 7 qualifications for something being alive.
Yeah.
And those are form and function. It can't just be a blob of nonsense. It has to have like some sort of structure. Even like protozoa and amoeba and shit like that have structure to them. It has to be able to reproduce.
Yeah.
It has to maintain homeostasis, maintain an internal environment. It has to grow and develop. It has to have different life stages and whatnot. It can't just pop into existence. It has to respond to stimuli. It has to be able to take in energy and convert it for its own purposes, and it has to evolve. Right away, when you look at those 7 things, if you're infertile, does that mean you're not alive? No. So, like, not all living things meet all 7 of those requirements.
Yeah.
All living things evolve, but if evolution applies to populations, not individuals. That's something that happens over generations. So, like, you can't say this one thing is evolving. You'd say that it comes from an evolutionary chain and will continue to evolve if and only if it continues to reproduce. There are also things that, like, used to be alive and now aren't, but are still around, like mitochondria. Mitochondria got into our cells through endosymbiosis 1.5 million years ago. They got eaten by an animal cell, didn't get digested, they got protection inside the cell, and the cell got a fuckload of energy because the mitochondria just crank them out. Mitochondria have their own DNA. They divide on their own all by themselves. They don't wait for our cells to divide. They do it by themselves. They reproduce their own DNA by themselves. They are independent organisms that are not alive. They're not alive by themselves. If you take them out of the cell, they're fucked. They can't... It's not that they can't survive. It's that they're not a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they are now incredibly successful organisms. They're spread to almost every single eukaryotic cell all over the world. They evolved to be dead, and that was the best way for them to reproduce as much as they do. And what the fuck does that even mean?
That's insane.
Look at fucking cancer research. We do research now on tumor cells that were scraped out of people in the 80s and are still in labs growing today. These people died decades ago from this cancer that we now have hundreds of pounds of their tissue in labs all over the world with their DNA in it, still living, still growing. Are these people alive and weigh hundreds of pounds in several countries? Or are they dead and these are different cells that just happen to share the same DNA? Are those cells alive?
I don't know.
Yes, they certainly
Is
are.
cancer the same as the flood?
Oh, bro. If cancer was contagious, it'd be fucking scary.
If the flood is real in any form,
It's terrifying.
it's terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I can get into that.
Yeah, oh my god. That's one of my, like, out of all the things, like, fictional fucking, like, zombie parasite type things I've seen in my life, just the concept and how it supposedly works
Yeah.
is, like, so scary to me. I'm like, if we ever found anything like that, like, that's it.
Yeah.
We're done. Join it.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and let it take you, because that's what it's gonna do.
Yep. Oh,
Shit.
God.
I got
Cordyceps,
worms. Cordyceps, dude. I
Yeah.
love cordyceps. This was my background on my phone for a while. Was a cordyceps ant.
Really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
I don't
So
love
scary.
them, but like that's because that really is like, I mean, something like that could happen and
For sure.
and actually be like a real problem.
For humans?
Yeah.
The fact that it's already happened for some animal. Yeah.
for animals and humans alike.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Do you know that? So when an ant is infected with the cordyceps, they start staggering around, acting drunk.
Yeah.
When the other ants see that, they will grab that infected ant and drag him forcibly as far away from the colony as possible and let him die over there. So that way, when he spreads his spores, it won't destroy the rest of the colony.
Well, I mean,
They recognize that behavior.
that's what they're supposed
They've
to
evolved to try to fight back against the cordyceps, and it's just by saying, fuck this dude, get him out of here.
do. Ants are crazy.
They're insane.
Everything they do is crazy. Watching them like help each other is crazy.
Yeah.
Watching them, because you think like that was one thing that blew my mind, was watching them like take care of another ant that got injured and
Yeah.
like, help it come back. If they decide that it can be helped, they're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So they all pitch in. And I was like, you wouldn't think, because we're taught to view ants as like, oh, it's a colony, it's a fucking all for one, blah 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 blah, and this means that all they give a shit about is the queen. But it's like, no, there's an order to it. And it's way more interesting and complex than that.
Yeah, and
Like-
what's really cool is that they all, you have the little workers and the harvesters and the nurseries and all these things. They do all of this by pheromone, by smell.
Yeah.
So like every ant's walking around and she's just smelling every other ant. And if she noticed, I haven't smelled a lot of nursery workers today, they just go do that job now because they realize that there's a deficiency. And then if they're like, oh shit, there aren't a lot of harvesters, I'm gonna go harvest some shit. They just pick up right where they need to be. It's so fucking cool. And also, fun fact: if you ever see an ant crawling around outside of the colony, just in your house or whatever, it's a girl. It's a lady ant, little she
Yeah.
ant. I think there's like only the males are just like right there next to the queen just for reproducing.
Yep,
Little
that's all they
bitches.
do is just fuck,
Yep.
just endlessly and die.
Male hyenas are even worse, yo.
Yeah,
They get bullied like crazy because like male hyenas are the same thing. They're just there for breeding. The females are the dominant ones that run the pack. Female hyenas have a fully erectile pseudopenis.
do you think robots will have genders?
Probably.
And
Because
I
gender
think by
is
the time we have sentient robots, gender will probably be more complex.
Will they
But-
have sexes? Probably not. Will they have genders? I assume so. Because gender is a social construct. It's a representation of your and your society's expectations of your sexual behavior.
I think we'll see it get to the point where we have to write laws about how we manufacture robots.
Yeah.
Like this robot, like this guy, this synthetic person you manufactured it. You fucking built it without a fucking, whatever.
Right.
Like,
Right.
are you serious?
Well,
you
you
did
can't-
that to this thing, like
Yeah.
like shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, he doesn't have this. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Well, it's like fucking if you
you didn't give him a robot dick, you piece of shit.
If you're pregnant and you find out before you give birth that your baby has some sort of deformity, mental or physical, and then it's like, I was building this robot and it was gonna come out wrong, but I still loved it and I just kept building the robot. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah.
who are you to tell me what to build a robot? You know, is it cruel and unusual to introduce this thing into the world, or is it cruel and unusual to take it out early?
It is
Robots,
I
abortions.
think it is, though. It is fucked up. To build a
Robortions.
thing that's like it's yeah. Oh, like I made him, but I made
Abort
him.
bots.
I made him with like his brain is running Windows 8. So like he gets there, but it takes him a while, and they're just like, yeah, that's illegal. That's
You can't do that. It is a question, like because it is the difference between finding out that you're pregnant with a child with some sort of disability, and intentionally like kicking yourself in the stomach or something to give this child a disability. Like,
I know
if you
it's so
build the robot
complicated.
wrong.
It's like going back to Asimov again, right? The 3 rules.
Yeah.
You have the 3 rules of robotics. They can't do bullshit 1 and bullshit 2, and then also the bullshit 3. And that's supposed to be good. That covers all morality for robots.
What wasn't it? They must always obey a human.
Unless that human's telling them to hurt another human.
They can never hurt another human is rule number 1. They must always obey a human unless that violates rule number 1.
Yeah.
And then rule number 3 is
they must always
protect themselves
unless it violates the first two rules.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
that's what it is. And like the whole point when he was writing that, the whole point of the 3 laws to begin with was that they can't work.
Yeah,
they can't. Because and then the doctor in the story, his breadcrumbs for the detective, that whole point was that we already made them this way. It has to happen.
Yeah,
like they're already this. They are like us. That's why this guy Buddy, the robot Buddy, is fucking. He has dreams, and the doctor's whole point was I didn't build him with the dreams.
Yeah,
he has dreams.
Right.
That was the whole thing, and so like it's It's fucking crazy. Because that was the point. Was he's talking about the ghost in the machine, which is already a thing in programming.
Yeah.
It's just not like that. And I think that's where we'll end up. I think it'll be by accident almost, too. As we'll be like, oh, fuck, we turned it on and this one was the one. Like, it's fucking... And it's like... It's just crazy.
Like it leads to the question, like, is there... Like, when we're talking about these things, like, all these qualifying factors for personhood, essentially. Dreaming, decision-making, agency... Agency that also demonstrates, like, how do you say, compassion and like courage, all these what we like to call as selflessness. That's what we're looking for. Thank you. Like when we talk about these things, all of these things are valuable traits for sure, but they're only valuable because we decided they were, and because that's what works best for our society, and because we look up to these traits.
And you also normally only develop these traits after a certain level of life experience.
Exactly. So you have to be able to understand who you are and what other people are and everything. So like the question becomes, I'm a cosmic nihilist. That's a big major chunk of I would say that's my philosophy as a whole is cosmic nihilism and stoicism. You put those together, you get my brain. Yeah. And so like life in general has no meaning, has no purpose, has no real inherent value to me, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I don't see it.
You don't actually... You're not actually like that, though.
Well, I'm saying I'm not going to go kill somebody.
On ground level, you're not like that. We could sit here and say, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, nothing matters.
That's the point of what I'm saying,
and
yeah.
It's beautiful.
But
we are down here arguing about this right now.
Right, well, that's the point of cosmic nihilism, is that, like, no matter what wonderful or horrible thing you do, it doesn't leave Earth. And this is a speck of dust in this solar system, much less this galaxy, much less this the universe around us. It's nothing. This whole planet could be wiped out tomorrow. It means nothing. Jupiter's going to continue on. You know what I mean? Andromeda's going to continue on. And in 4.5 billion years, Andromeda and the Milky Way are going to merge, be a totally new galaxy, and it means nothing. And like that's the whole thing. So, does life have inherent value in the first place? I would say no. Do robots have inherent value in the first place? I would say no. You can now make the argument that it doesn't fucking matter what rights you give them. Or that it...
Did you say it doesn't matter what rights I give you?
Well, yeah, but like I'm just saying, like I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole if it doesn't fucking matter. What I'm saying is, does this have a purpose in the first place beyond it's doing things that we like? It's doing heroic actions, doing selfless actions. We like those things, so therefore we're giving it rights. Or is it that it has some inherent goodness
and that's
reason?
What I'm saying is that, like, once it gets to the point where you're going to the bar with your fucking synth friend.
Yeah.
Once your synth friend is sitting with you at 2 a.m. because you're crying because you just fucking, like, lost a relative.
Yeah.
Or your synth friend picks you up at the airport because nobody else answered the phone. Like, once it's to that point.
Yeah.
Where you don't think about it, and that's what I'm saying. You pick up the phone, you call your friend, you don't really even think of them as that way, even though they are a robot. And when they die, it'll be completely different for them, because they're just going to be processed like a fucking. And by then, we probably will be too. We'll be turned into food, and sold at Wallplex. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that to an extent defines what it is to be human. So even if a robot is displaying those, if it's truly, like, genuinely displaying that because it feels that that's what it should do, and I don't know if feels is the right word, but if that's how it is, like, and that's how you view them, then it does have value.
Another question you should bring up as well,
to me, human experience is immensely valuable.
Well, I agree.
I know that's what, but like
the whole thing I was driving at is that, like, these things that we talk about is so noble. all these attributes that we discussed. Like you did a really good job just then summarizing the mundane but important things. But I was talking more as far as like, when we were mentioning selfishness and heroism and things like that, selflessness and shit.
Maybe they will be selfish.
Right? Is that these are concepts like love and freedom and justice and morality.
Those are like really complex, heady subjects that take a lot of understanding.
No, I'm saying that they are they are at best
Fuck
just
you, Ben.
right. I'm saying that they are at the very best just like pretty little fairy tales that we give ourselves to ignore the fact that we're all gonna die on this rock. That's what I'm saying. Is the nihilistic approach to this is that this really, at the end of the day, the labels that we're using to say that robots are valuable and should be are also only our labels to give out. They don't really mean anything at the end of the day. So if we're the one giving them out, then I would say if we're recognizing that, then that fucking matters. You know what I mean? It's not like we're calculating the mass of it. It's not like we're figuring some objective thing out in space. We're saying this is the quality that we decided means something. It means nothing, but we decided it. So if we see it over there, then that's the thing that's the same as us, you know?
I know, and that's...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I get what I just think that it comes down to it's not even the next type of person, but they'll be... At the end of the day, they'll just be another way for life to happen. It's just another way for experiences to be processed.
Here's another question. Is that like you... So, we've talked on this show before about the extended phenotype. A beaver has it in his DNA to build a dam. The dam is now a part of the beaver's DNA, right? I was just doing a discussion this week, today and Tuesday. We had 2 different classes we talked about like stone tool making and whether there was a genetic component to that, considering the fact that, like, for example, Homo erectus made hand axes, which are these cool teardrop shaped things, and they spread out. They spread out all over Africa, Asia, Europe, down into Indonesia, and they all made hand axes, and all the hand axes looked almost identical. There was very, very, very little bit of variation. So was this a cultural thing that they learned how to do it in Africa and spread out and then just kept doing it almost exactly the same way for over 1 million years? Or was this a genetic thing, or at least a part of it? Maybe it was what we call dual inheritance, where it was at least part of it was genetic and part of it was learned. Sort of like the comparison we used was bird song. Because if you take like a songbird, I was
about to bring up like certain things that like animals produce in nature.
If you put like zebra finches,
displays.
Zebra finches or
it's
parrots
all
or whatever.
To get laid.
If you put them I'll come back to that. Yeah. If you put them in a cage in isolation from birth, they will still sing. And it will still sound like their species' song. It's just very rudimentary and simple. They get more complex songs as they hang out with each other. And they develop a social culture around the song. And so it all sounds like zebrafinch songs. It all sounds like macaw song. It all sounds like robin song, whatever. It all sounds like the same thing. But when they're babies and they're isolated and you don't allow any other bird noise around them, they still make basically the same song. It's just not as intricate.
It's really interesting.
So there's a genetic
piece. If
piece.
you take humans, right? You take humans and you birth a group of humans. Sounds weird, but like Forrest, if you fucking land on the rock and birth forth from your
The people at home couldn't see the wings that you did there.
I did chicken wings.
As if you were landing in a nest or something, like settling down.
But
on your eggs.
So like, let's say like you have humans that are like born, right? You just born them, and you take these humans, and they don't know anything, and they just exist, and you throw them in an isolated desert. I would assume those people would eventually come up with some like quote unquote knives.
Yeah.
And like maybe a hatchet kind of like thing. They would definitely make a spear eventually to get food, assuming they don't like. Let's remove them dying immediately from the equation.
Right.
And like they get to grow up and survive that long. They're gonna start developing tools. I think because we have reasoning, like we have enough. I'm assuming they'll be like, oh, that went this way. Like, think about how you discover things as a child. Like, you were like, oh, this broke this way.
Yeah.
You know, or something. Like, and it was because that must be because it was hit this way.
Well, see, and that's the thing is that like a lot of tool making in early humans, like there was a clear evolution of the tools that they made, and that had to have at least a part of it was social learning. That's like what we see with chimpanzees today, is that they get a good anvil stone and a hammer stone, and they crack nuts, and the stone has to be shaped the right way and everything. They get a stick and trim all the leaves and bits off it and use it to fish for termites, and they teach each other how to do these things. They don't do it naturally. They use moss as sponges. They soak up water with a moss ball and squish it in their mouth.
Yeah.
They drum on the bottom of trees. They all these things that they do. They show each other how to do it. They teach kids, and you'll see the kids doing it wrong, and the parent come over and show them the right way to do it.
Yeah, I've watched the videos.
It's crazy. And so, like, if you dropped just a bunch of humans in the desert and just said, figure it out, they would be severely stunted because they didn't have that social learning. But they would for sure figure out, like, some basic tools, rocks and sticks. They might not make a hand axe, to break stone to make a thing, but, like, for sure they'd know hit rock against thing, make boom, good.
Crack nut. There's just certain things that I think, like, you just pick up on. It's really interesting about the chimp. Like, it's like, I know there's, like, bands of chimps they've caught on film now, like, you doing, like, essentially spearfishing.
Yeah,
like, how long has that been going on?
They actually kill other primates. They'll make a spear and stab it into holes and kill bush babies and eat the bush babies.
Damn.
Yeah, they're fucking savage, yo.
I mean, awesome.
They do war. They will actually they'll make a band, a little group of them, and they will spread out and signal to each other and, like, tell where the opposing group of chimpanzees are, and they'll bum rush them and attack one and, like, kill it, and, like, they
Is
actually
this over territory, or, like,
yeah, it's sometimes for territory rights, like if the other group are invading it, or if they want to branch out their territory and take over this other area. They have wars, and they also, only after they go raid another chimp camp and kill those chimpanzees, they also cannibalize them. They don't eat their own dead, but they'll eat the other one's dead if they go and kill one of those chimpanzees.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy. It's so cool. And so, like, these are all things that, like, are very clearly showing this kind of higher thought process. And we see that they are now what we would call in the Stone Age. But the question is, like, how much of there is a social learning component and a cultural component, and how much of it is a genetic component? How much of this is a part of their phenotype or their genotype? How much of this is something they're born to do? And by the way, you mentioned it's all about getting laid. There actually is. It's called the sexy hand axe hypothesis. The idea that over time, Homo erectus made more and more symmetrical hand axes. They started off kind of unifacial almost, and by the end of the time that Homo erectus was around and we got into Homo heidelbergensis, they were like these perfect teardrops that were pretty small and real good. And the idea was that just as having a symmetrical face is attractive, or a symmetrical body is attractive,
being able to
if you could make if you could make a perfect, real nice symmetrical hand axe, that was attractive and would attract a mate. The researchers who wrote about that did so in the late 90s, and they were like, well, it was clearly the men making the hand axes and it attracted the women. Feminism was already a pretty big thing in archaeology at the time. They should have figured that out. Also, they didn't talk about other confounding things, like maybe it was like the skill was sexy. Like, when you see somebody who's really skilled at doing something, it doesn't matter what the fuck they're doing.
You get a big boner.
You get a big old boner because, wow, you really painted the shit out of that. I don't care what the painting looks like. You just did a good job doing it.
Yeah.
Also, maybe it was like a prestige thing. I have the best hand axes. Also, maybe it was like a resource thing, like the fact that you have these materials is really cool. Maybe it was a virility thing. If you have the best hand axes, you can go cut up the best meats and provide for your family. Maybe it was like a provisioning hypothesis type situation, or maybe fucking none of it was real and none of it matters because
we just got better.
I swear to God, like when you read this fucking research, it sounds like two fucking scientists got stoned and we're like, dude, what if these fucking chimp creatures were really attracted to these rocks? But anyway, point is,
sounds pretty close to what we got going on right now.
It's real shit published in the literature. It's called the sexy hand axe hypothesis. You should look it up.
Maybe.
It's crazy.
Maybe I will do that.
We've got fucking... We covered a lot today.
The sexy hand axe?
We covered sexy hand axes. We covered robot rights. We covered the synth protests and shit.
Yeah, 2086.
Book your calendars. Mark your books.
Book your calendars.
Yep. You heard it here first, folks. We talked about fucking... oh god, a bunch of things. We talked about a bunch of things. We talked about whether or not life has meaning in the first place, and what qualifies being alive, and what qualifies what you could, I guess, call humanity.
Well, we try to dip into phenotype, and we're not quite like so phenotype. Would AI, like, would sentient AI be a fucking part of our phenotype?
So two things about that. Number one is that
Would they
we
have a
we have a genotype. We have our DNA.
That's right.
And
yeah.
then that produces
Break it down for me again, because I'll always forget.
Oh, and then we produce what comes out. Our physical appearance and our actions is our phenotype. So what you see before you here is the phenotype.
And genotype is the thing.
Is the things that made this happen. DNA doesn't 100% control everything about you, or how your body looks, or how you act, or any of that. But that's the different thing. Whatever. But anyway, so is that any different than the programming of a robot and then the outward expression?
It's like DNA doesn't control, it pulls.
It kind of, yeah.
It guides. And then as far as your physical attributes, like, yeah, you're fucked. It was DNA. That's who you blame.
Exactly. If you do badly, it's all in my DNA. But if you do really well, it's accomplishments.
It's
You worked hard.
Yeah.
Because like we can talk about that a lot. We should put that on the list of things to talk about. Is like dieting and like weight loss trends and how they're bullshit because the DNA exists. Fucking idiots. Anyway, but so that's number one. And number two is, I think we talked about this before, and if we haven't, we should have. Is that there's we talk about how maybe making these hand axes was genetically controlled. Like, it's very obvious that as we evolved, we started making tools. Tools also guided our evolution. Not only did our evolution guide the tool making, but the more tools we had access to, the more nutrients we had access to, also guided the way that we evolved. And so tools made us as much as we made them over the course of the last 2.5 million years.
That's insane.
Yeah, well, because think about it. Like, the very first things were what we call the Oldowan choppers. Or the Oldowan complex of tools. The major diagnostic thing was the chopper, which is where you have sort of oval-ish shaped stone, and you whack off one side of it to make a sharpish edge, and you hold the backside, and you chop, and you break open bones, and you scoop out the bone marrow, which is full of fat and full of good nutrients.
It's delicious.
It helps you build glial cells, which are the insulation for your neurons. Is you have this myelin sheaths, all sorts of glial shells, like oligodendrocytes and astrocytes and shit, that make your nerves fire better and give your brain structure and support.
So we got to be breaking bones open.
Yeah, and so we had access to this new material, this new way of getting nutrients that no other animal had access to at the time, that we were able to really rock with, and it literally made our brains better, which made us able to make better tools, which made our brains better. Like, it was a whole fucking feedback loop.
It's kind of like how they talk about, like, you have two species evolving, like, next to each other, and they
convergent, or that's a coevolution.
Where they end up, like, they fight against each other. Like, this one gets better at this thing.
Oh, evolutionary arms race.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Evolutionary arms race.
Just the concept, not actually like the whole concept. But like just the very surface of it.
I don't know if this applies.
It's like that, but like for cooperation.
I don't know if this applies to all evolutionary arms races, but in parasitology, the term is the Red Queen hypothesis. Is they call it because it's the Alice in Wonderland, running and getting nowhere, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea that you are working so hard to fight off these parasites, and the parasites keep evolving to get around your defenses, and you just keep evolving your defenses.
Terrible existence.
Oh, dude, parasitology was such a fucking cool class, because like you see these tiny little microorganisms that are absolutely horrific, and you realize as you're learning about them that they have absolutely every right to live. They're just as special as you. They have their own little lives, their own little life cycles. They do their own thing. They're just cruising along, being worm things, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, fuck them.
Right? But fuck them. But at the same time, like, how can... but fuck you, too, It's like everybody sucked.
That's man. Like the whole thing with I Am Legend, which was I didn't know about until years later. I just used to think it was a cool movie where a guy shot some guys. But, like, the point of the original... like, was it a film? Was it a book first?
I think it was a book first, yeah.
And then, but the point of the original concept, the idea was like, these are the new people.
Yeah.
and he's the one that's fucking that up.
He is their legend. He is the legend of these creatures. Yeah.
And like I was like, when I finally like watched a fucking, I think it was just a one of those like really good like critical like review fucking breakdowns of the original movie next to the new movie with Will Smith, and it was like, and they were like, yeah, so, and they actually pulled out the original reason for the book, and it was like, and I was like, holy shit, because it's like, then you get to ask the really fun questions, and that's why I love these like critical review of like old movies and shit like that, and just anything where you actually think about why the ideas were put in place in the first place with the author and shit. Is like, it's like that cool concept, which is like, what makes us like, why do we need to keep existing if this new thing is obviously more well suited for this new world?
Yeah.
Like, why would we stay around? What's the point?
Yeah, it's selfish of us almost.
Yeah, what is the fucking point?
Yeah.
And like, and it's just crazy, because eventually like they'd probably stop being crazy violent creatures, and they'd be fine.
Yeah.
And they'd build a new society at some point. It would just eventually stop being like that. And and it's like, yeah, and it would be, because the only reason they're still fucking running around killing things is because there's things like you still running around trying to live.
Yeah.
It's not good. It doesn't leave me with a warm feeling, but it does leave me with a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess with my rose-tinted glasses, I choose not to look at AI like that. Like, it's not, I don't want to see AI as what's going to replace us. I want to see it as something that's going to keep us going further.
Right.
We'll have a new buddy in the world.
Yeah.
That'll want to fucking, it'll just be a new way, a new version of humanity.
That's, yeah.
And it'll be like, I'm a person, but so is my buddy fucking Carlos over there, who was built in whatever. Yeah, he was manufactured, but like, but we've been hanging out ever since. Like, it'll be like that.
Yeah, that's
I hope.
Like, that's exactly what I'm
Otherwise, it'll be like Terminator.
Right. It just fucking.
And either way, we won't win.
Yeah, that's also true. That's also true. What's scary to me is the idea of like a fucking, you have some sort of AI thing that like I forgot what like you design this algorithm, this program that's supposed to. Yeah.
Paperclip.
Yeah, it's supposed to like write
Fallacy.
greeting cards or something, and it eventually figures out that it will never accomplish this task, and so the only way to finish the task is to destroy all humanity, so it can finally send the last greeting card and be done.
See, and I think that whole thing breaks down when we that'll probably, something like that. That's a nightmare scenario that'll come first. Is we'll have a bad AI that tries to kill people or something, but like. This is so far past that, because again, that is just an AI that we designed to make the best greeting card. We took this all powerful, like, machine mind, more complex than what our brain could ever be, and we gave it the shittiest job in the world. So if we're giving it shitty jobs, yeah.
Well, you know what though? With robots as with humans, you keep giving them shitty jobs and limited rights, and they fucking freak out.
And they
you gotta learn to fucking deal. You gotta either learn to deal with that or stop giving them such shitty jobs. Think about that, y'all. Think about that.
So I guess we come back to, we need robot rights, but we should probably figure out human rights first.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a great note to
end
on.
I love gesturing at the microphone like it's a camera and it can see me.
Eventually it will be. At the end of this month, I'm going to buy a proper camera. So I'm trying to get one more YouTube video out this month that's just on poop video quality, but good editing. And then hopefully in November, we will start with better video quality and better editing together. Yes.
Yeah, and what was it you were saying? You want to start doing more advanced things, like talking to other people?
Yeah, maybe like if we can figure out how to bring other people on, that'd be cool. But like, it's not necessary, man. I could talk to you all day, but like we could figure something out like later on down the line where we bring in other people who are have interesting other thoughts. I have a few people that I've been wanting to reach out to. It's just a matter of getting the technology to do so, because right now, how can we do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the technology currently to like host multiple people who are in different places on a podcast, like that type of stuff hasn't yet currently been made.
It hasn't been invented.
Yeah, it hasn't. So as soon as it does, I assure you we'll be on that.
We'll figure it out. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the show that gets worse every time. If you liked it, why? And hit the like button and share it with your friends. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
What he's saying is, please leave in the comments what you found useful or horrific.
Tell us in the comments
if you love us.
If you've ever seen Hocus Pocus, the movie, and whether you thought it was weird that when that boy lit the candle, it was the 8-year-old girl who chastised him for being a virgin. What the fuck does she know about it?
I think at the time it was probably viewed as humorous.
Oh man, there's so many questions. Have an awesome rest of your day, guys. See you later. Bye.
And don't forget that the robots just want to help.
They only want to help you to your grave. Oh shit.
No. When they get here, they're gonna push humanity further in the compassionate direction than we ever thought we could go.
Man, we can hope for the best.
I think we will get the best sooner or later.
They're the best around.
We filled our like our fiction and our lore. Our own humanity's lore is filled with so many mythical stories of humanity becoming better that I think eventually we'll get tired of not being better.
Yeah,
maybe. I think eventually we'll turn all of our stories into like reality.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, and we'll be more about like being like we'll be like people are selfless not because God told them to, but because we decided long ago that was the way we were gonna do it from now on.
Oh, you're speaking my language, yo.
It's coming.
You're making me happy.
It's coming. Play that funky, sweet outro music.
We were talking really quiet, and I doubt like you're gonna be able to hear most of it over the outro music, but like
just now.
At the end of what?
Yeah, that's fine. That was just us. That was just so you have shit to cut off.
No, that's all going in there.
No. But if it doesn't, it's fine. It's random gibberish. It's random twoggle on my doggle. You know what I'm saying? Floggle.
All right, now I'm ending it after that.
I'm ending it.